And I was like, whoa. And the crowd, a bunch of hip hop purists, started chanting, real records, real records, real records. And I'm like, oh, I'm cool,
I'm
right?
sure.
I'm cool. I'm not worried about it. They want real records. They don't want this stuff. And over the next year, it was like somebody turned the faucet off. I had more DJs coming to sell their records than buying records.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Indie Unplugged. I am, of course, your host, Bevon, and today we have a special guest with us, someone whose journey through the music industry is both dynamic and inspiring. Let me take a moment to introduce Angel Soto to you. He is the CEO of Benton Entertainment. He began his musical adventure in the early 90s as a DJ, eventually opening Benton Records in 2001. Now, despite the challenges posed by the digital era, Angel's passion for music led him to establish Benton Entertainment in 2014. Today, Benton Entertainment manages an impressive catalog of over 400 titles and more than 40 artists and songwriters. Known for his dedication to fostering growth and collaboration within the music community, Angel has also revived the Tampa Music Conference, making it a pivotal networking event for industry professionals. So, ladies and gentlemen, join us as we delve deeper into Angel Soto's path, his career, and insights in the music industry.
Thank you. That, that is quite an intro. I'm going to have to live up to that. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you
It's
very much
pretty cool.
for being here. So, so I like to set context of especially guests that I have on the show that I know that may not know me. Right.
Okay.
So let me kind of give some context to when, because we met twice. So
Oh,
the first
gosh.
twice. The first met was actually at the Tampa Music Conference. Um, I used to travel a whole lot for my job, and so I would go all over the United States, and I just happened to be in Tampa. I forgot what year it was, um, but I happened to be in Tampa, and I saw that there's an event, there's a networking event. I was like, all right,
Yeah.
let me buy a ticket to the Tampa Music Conference, and I went. It was a great event, and I ended up meeting a guy there named Angel Soto, and we talked a little bit, we exchanged some information, and then we enjoyed the event and did all of that, and I just we left, and the event ended, and then in 2017, 16, 2017 probably, there was an event here in Atlanta where the event was put on by James Caldwell. And at that event, it was a sync. It was like, I forgot what it was called, sync and pitch, pitch and sync. It was something like that. But at this event, it was hosted by James Caldwell, and
Mm-hmm.
there, and Karen Marie Mason was there, uh,
Mm-hmm.
and y'all were there to have people pitch their music to you for sync, and then after, and y'all gave feedback, and then afterwards there was a networking piece, and then that's where I met you again, was at that event. um,
I remember that event now. Okay.
yeah, yeah. So I always give context. I have a great, it's so crazy, I have a great memory. But
You
uh,
do have a really good, because mine was horrible. I'm trying to remember, which which Tampa Music Conference it could have been. And the way that I remember them is by who was on the panel that year. That's kind of how I remember. I can't remember which year or also where it was because I changed venues a few
right.
times.
I think I have his
So
in my
yeah,
like.
so that was kind of. But I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'm
I
glad the Tampa Music Conference was a project of love.
do.
You know, It took a lot of work, and and the community got a lot from it. So
Mm.
I'm
Well,
glad with. I'm glad.
yeah, even people who probably weren't in the immediate Tampa community. Like I said, I was in in St. Louis, and I
Right.
knew I was going to Tampa, and I always like to find events in areas that I go to. And I just happened to see Tampa Music Conference, and I was like, "Oh, I'm going to go." I can't remember. I do have pictures. I have pictures of all the events that I've been to. So I'll see if I can find a picture and text it to you, and like, oh yeah, I remember that. Um, but yeah, it was still it was still a great event. Um, but let's take a step back because I do want to talk about the the Tampa Music Conference specifically. But can you just give us some context to your music journey? How did you get started? I mentioned you were a DJ, but kind of give us kind of the beginnings of your story and kind of where you ended up today.
So, so I've actually been giving this a little bit of thought because it's been proposed to do a documentary on the story.
Oh, that's
So that kind of made me think about where did this come from, right? I'm not musically inclined, but I love music and everything that it does for human beings. And my earliest memory, I think, was when I was maybe 4 or 5 years old. I was a kid, maybe even younger than that. My godfather used to run a radio station. I was born in Colombia, so he had a, and I don't know if it was a legit radio station, a pirate
mm.
radio station. I just like today trying to think that this guy had a radio station in his apartment kind of makes me think it might have not been like the most legit radio station. But but I would go visit and I would sit there quietly, and the DJs or the radio people would be doing their thing,
Mm,
and one of them in particular would let me push the button every now and then, right? And I'm wondering if that was really where it started. And then I continued thinking, and my family is very big. My grandmother had 10 kids.
mm,
You know, there's 33 cousins, so we don't have to have a reason to have a party. We get together, and it's just enough of us to
right.
make it a party. And I would be the guy who would stand by the record player and change the records, right?
Mm,
I didn't really do a whole lot of dancing, but I did put a lot of, I was that guy. Then, I lived in New Jersey for a while, and I went to a basement party and there was a guy DJing there. And that like made my imagination just, in 1989, we leave New Jersey and move to Florida. I make some friends, and I've always collected music. I always purchased records, vinyl records, right?
mhm.
Um, and a friend of mine, his parents are going out of town, right? So what do you do when you're a teenager and your party and your
That's right.
parents leave the country? You throw a party,
For a party.
throw a party. So he's like, man, we should hire a DJ. And I'm like, man, you don't need a DJ. I could do that.
Mm,
And I went to Radio Shack and bought a mixer, and we took the speakers out of his car, and somehow that was our sound system. And I played records. I played records that night, and that's kind of where it started. That's kind of how my involvement in the music world began. Because that night, someone said, "Hey, man, how much do you charge to do a party?" And I'm like, "Oh, I don't know. Like, I've just played records." So I went and bought more records, bought better equipment, and I became a DJ myself. And I use the word lightly. I was a bedroom DJ who played at weddings, right? Like
mm,
I didn't do clubs or like, but I loved it. And my happy place was the record store. Any money I got, I'd go buy records. I'd go digging for records. I just, it was just fun. It was, there's something special about going to the record store, buying records solely on whether it was the record label or the artist, because you didn't know what the song sounded like,
right.
right? You weren't buying hits. But by the time they were on the radio, the DJs already had them for
Mhm,
months before that. So I would go buy records, and you kind of took a chance, but it was something special about taking it home, opening it up, taking that plastic wrap off, putting on the turntable. listening, and you just bought this, and you're gonna hear it for the first time, unless it was something that like one of your friends had put you on or something, right? And as the record is playing, you start counting your BPM so that you can
Mm.
mark down your BPMs, and you know how, and you start reading the credits, and you start kind of, and that process became, it kept me out of trouble. It kept me, my creativity would spark. Um, so, at some point I decided I want to have my own record store. And that's kind of where this whole thing began. I quit my job, took a mortgage against my house.
I
I
know
don't recommend it. Don't do that. Don't ever do that.
some of like,
And opened a record store and named it Benton Records. And it did well. We focused on selling vinyl to DJs. We did a lot of hip hop, not on purpose. It's just how it how it turned out. And the community accepted us with open arms. And before you know it, the DJs were always there, so the artists would come, and because the artists were there, the producers would come, and it became a central hub in the Tampa music community. And what happens is people would come, artists would say, "Hey man, can you sell my CD here?" I'm like, "Sure, we'll sell your CD."
mm,
We we started to become like a connection. And what we realized quickly is that a lot of people didn't know what they were doing. You couldn't Google didn't exist, so you couldn't be like, how do I become a famous artist?
right.
Like not like that didn't happen. So people are out here just kind of winging it, and I didn't know any better, but I was interested in learning. And then that's where the idea for the Tampa Music Conference came, as a
Mm,
result of the need for education, because we didn't know what we were doing.
right. Wow. Yeah, I mean that is a so let me go back for a moment. For those of you who don't know what Radio Shack is, right? That was the store that we went to back in the day that sold all the electronics. Right? They don't really exist anymore, but that was like the store that you would go to buy all of your electronic stuff, right?
All the old school DJs will understand when I say I bought a realistic mixer. They already know what I'm talking about.
That's right. That's right. But yeah, I like that. That's a very very interesting journey because most people are like, oh yeah, I grew up in the church, or I was always into music. I had family members who were into music, and we did this. And you yourself, like, I'm not musically inclined. I don't play any instruments, but I love music, and it's always the love of music that is always that pull. It's like I may not know how to play
Mhm.
instruments, and that's the beauty of it. It's like most people in the music industry don't know how to play instruments. I mean, especially
Right.
people who are in the not the non-creative side, right? The non-creative side. They may not know how to play music, but they have a passion for it, a love for it, and so that leads them to doing things kind of like the things that you were doing. And so that's always interesting, going from being a DJ to opening up your own record store, and then saying, "Hey, you know what? They may not. I don't know if they really know what they're doing. Let's 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 put something in place that can educate others to help them, receive the knowledge and education they need to be successful in the music industry." And so that's of course how the Tampa Music Conference was born.
B, it was such a beautiful thing. It
Hmm.
was such a beautiful thing to see 100, 200, 300 people sitting there quietly with notepads taking notes. It was beyond what I had dreamed it would be.
Mm.
It
Okay.
was really dope.
Yeah, when you think about it, how many educational avenues did they really have available to them to receive that knowledge outside of books? And maybe there were some, by that time I think YouTube was there, and there was probably some videos is circulating, but most people probably didn't get that information. They got it was from other people. I don't
Yep.
need, I don't even think Full Sail, maybe Full Sail was operational by then, or maybe Berkeley was operational by then, but not many people went to school, those types of schools specifically for music education. So how do they receive it? I mean, we winged it. We
Yeah.
everybody was trying to figure it out, unless you were really getting with a major record label, you know, and
Yeah. But even that, for those few that were signed by a major record label, they didn't have the guidance
right,
to as to how to approach negotiations or how what to look for in the contract. Like none of that
none of that.
existed, which made the artist extremely vulnerable. Fortunately, those barriers of entries don't exist anymore, and it has
Mm,
changed now. But it was the wanting to provide a platform of education. The networking came separate. The networking ended up being equally important, if not more. But I made it a point to always have someone on the panel that could provide real deal. Like you know, everyone wanted the famous names.
of course.
I wanted their bosses,
Mm, mm,
right? Like yeah, you might want Little John to come speak at the conference because he's got all this experience. But who signed? Like who? Right? Who's running that business? Who's running that machine behind them?
mhm.
And those are the people who have a lot of knowledge to give. And you know what, B? They came. People will always be like, "Man, how did you get them to come?" I'm like, I just asked.
I just ask.
I
And
just asked. That's it. I
just
never paid anyone to come speak at the conference, and we had some pretty impressive people come through. I paid their airfare, their hotel, and fed them
right.
one night, like bought them dinner for that night. That was it. They never got cash out of me.
Yeah, you be.
They never.
They never ask. I
I
find
would have considered for some of them. I would have considered him, but I didn't offer, and they didn't ask.
right. I find that people who have a good heart with the right intentions, asking people to come and to be a part of something that they see is very valuable to the music community. A lot of people would come and just do it. I never, so I used to do, and I still do, I just haven't done it in a while, which I want to get back to in 2025. Um, Online music, um, I call it the conversation, and it's kind of like an online music panel where I have three people who are industry experts at certain things, and they come and talk about those things, and then it's all live. People can ask questions, things like that. Um, I had like famous people. I'm like, how did you get that person? I asked. I reached out and said, hey, do you want to be a part of this? And they were like, yeah, I'll come and do it. Great. And it's like all you have to do is ask. And I think that's what most people just don't. Well, they're not going to want to do it unless I pay them. No, you probably be really surprised.
One of my pet peeves is when, and as human beings, we tend to do this, not on purpose. I think it might just be a self defense mechanism, but a lot of times we put barriers that don't exist. We put barriers out there that don't
That's
exist. Those barriers exist only in our mind. And again, it may just be some kind of self defense mechanism from when we were cavemen. I don't know, but um, but you just got to do it. Like
you, you just got to
that's
do it.
it. I
Yeah.
had a client come through, and he does events. He's like,
Mhm.
man, what I really want to do is I just really want to sing. I'm like, oh, sing. Like that's
Yeah. What you want to do? Might as well go ahead and do it.
yeah, just do it.
Just do it. You saw,
Yeah, I have become an expert at destroying excuses.
exactly, because people need it. But it's so often that we put barriers in front of ourselves, right? I mean, I used to talk to my wife, and we have kids, and so our kids they usually make excuses as to why they can't do something. You know, you're telling them, you're making up in your mind that they're going to say no to you. Just go ask them. Well, what
Hmm.
they know? Well, they may say yes. You don't know, right? And I tell
Yeah,
people that all the time. Don't give them the no. You're thinking that they're going to say no, so that's the fear of you asking. Them. That's the barrier. Just ask, and the worst they can say is
no,
no. That's the
no,
worst they can say. So, like I
yeah,
said, I'll ask anybody for anything. I
yeah,
will ask. Trust me, I will ask. And the only thing you can say is, nope, I'm not interested.
yeah,
I've had I've had guests that I've invited to the show, and they say no, I don't want to be on the show. Okay, great. Thank you. I greatly appreciate it. Maybe somewhere in the future you can change your mind and then we can have that conversation. But I keep it moving. Like I tell my kids, I keep it moving. It may tell you no, but keep it moving, right? So, so
Every
with
no is just a step closer to the next yes.
and that's the thing is because once we hear the no, it becomes we take it personally. We're like, oh, they may say no. So if they say no, then that means they may not like me, and it has nothing to do with that, right? I used to teach sales a long time ago, and I would tell people like, you're going to get a bunch of no's, right? When you're selling
Hmm.
this particular product, you're going to get no. Don't take it personally. It's the nature of the business. You got to have thick skin. Same thing with the music industry. You got to have thick skin. You're going to hear no, but once you hear that yes, oh, it's going to open up doors, and it's going to build your self confidence once you hear that yes. And so I'll
Yeah.
always tell people just ask. You never know what you're going to get. All you have to do is ask. So, what for you? What were some of the most memorable moments for Benton? I want to go back to Benton Records, right?
Okay.
So starting that record store, of course, it must have been very challenging to go through that process. Can you talk a little bit about what that process is, and then what were some of the most memorable moments that you experienced during that time?
So I had no business opening a record store. Really, I had no. So it's 2001. I don't even know if Google's around yet. I don't think it was. And and I want to open a record store. Well, how do you buy records in bulk?
I don't know. I don't
I
know.
didn't either.
I don't.
I didn't either.
Great.
So
How do you do that?
so I remember that when I would get the new record, I would play it and I'd sit there and read the credits and whatnot. Well, in that process, I remember that almost always there was a phone number on the record label. So
Mm.
I called Micmac Records, I'd call Def Jam Records, and be like, hey, I'm opening a record store in Tampa, Florida. Who do you distribute through? And I
Mm.
got a handful of distributors that way. But then I wasn't prepared for how expensive records were. Like I thought, maybe the couple bucks, but no, like the profit margin on that was not there. And then, you go back then when you go into a record store, the walls were decorated with posters.
Oh yeah,
Where do you get those posters from?
from the labels, from the distributors. I'm assuming that's where they come from,
Yeah,
right?
but no, I don't. Well, later on, I found out that you end up on a list, and they start sending them to you.
Oh.
But when you're brand new and no one knows you exist, where do what do you do with your walls? Where do you buy the bins to put the records in?
Mm-hmm.
And even at a more basic level, how do you operate this dang cash register?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, the point of sale.
Yeah,
That's right.
yeah, like so. Obviously, we figured all that out, right? A friend of mine helped me build some bins. I
So let me ask you a question. I'm going to interrupt. How
Yeah,
long did it take for you to figure that out?
not very long, because that's entrepreneurship is a form of creativity,
I agree.
right? We have to be creative with our solutions. What do I do when there's no posters on the walls? Well, I let people sign my wall, and then it became a thing. It became a thing. If your name wasn't on the wall, you got offended. I mean, there's people who, to this day, shout out DJ Mingo Mix, who will remind me that I didn't ask him to sign the wall.
Like you.
So there's a solution to that. Records. Where do you find records? Well, I used to go buy records, right? And there was blessings. There's certain points in that. There's certain points in that journey that kind of remind you you're heading in the right direction. One of my favorite things to do was to go to a flea market. There's a particular flea market near my house, and I would buy records. This guy sold used records. His
Mhm.
name was Frank, right? Frank, the tie dye guy. What was special about Frank? He sold tie dye shirts and records. That was it. Like
Okay.
a lot of records.
Wow.
And Frank's story is interesting because Frank, at one point in his life, was in an accident and lost his memory, had amnesia, full amnesia,
Oh
like in
wow.
the movies. And music would bring memories back. So his obsession with music began because it would bring memories. Before he know it, he's got all these records and he's selling records and he would sell them cheap. And I would go there just to dig, just to find hidden gems And one day, out of the blue, Frank says to me, "Give me $500 and take them all." Well, you don't have to tell me twice. I went to
Right.
the ATM, gave this man my $500, went and rented the U-Haul. I
Wow.
got I got some records. They're not the best records. They're dusty because they're on the floor of it, but I got some records. There was another thing that DJs back then used to join something called the record pool, right?
Mhm.
So if you're a DJ and you're in a club, you would join a record pool and you would get all the new records first before they were available in the stores, almost about the same time as the radio station would get it. And the reason you would do that is because you're supposed to report your spins, and this is how the record label know if those records are worth pressing or not. If
Mhm.
these are test records, they're for promotional use only. You're not supposed to sell them. So when you're starting out and I did end up getting some records from the distributor because I needed to get started. But when funds are limited and whatnot, I put a little tiny ad in the newspaper,
Mm.
and it said, "Hey DJs, bold, we buy used records." So that served two purposes. One, it was I needed to find records, and two, it let DJs know that there was a new record store in town
Mm.
because DJs would call to sell their records. DJs sold records all the time. That was the thing, and I'd answer or the machine would answer, and they'd be like, "Oh, it's a new record store." And out of that ad, this gentleman, Tony Montana, called. He had a record pool and he had a garage full of records that he just needed to get out.
I don't know about that name though.
Oh yeah, well that was his radio name.
Yeah, right. I'm
That
just
was
like, I don't know.
yeah,
Wait.
that was the bad guy. That wasn't his. That was his radio name.
Right, his
But he
radio name.
had a garage full of records that I purchased at maybe like a dime a piece, 10 cents a piece.
Mm.
Went and got the U-Haul truck again, loaded them up, and now I have inventory. Right. So those are like the moments. There was DJ Cos. Our big station here at that point was Wild 94.1 or 98.7. I can't remember what it was at that time. DJ Cos played the old school lunch. Everybody loves the old school lunch, right? And I had a really dope old school section. It was just like there was stuff in there that was hard to find, and I sold it at very good price. DJ Cos finds my store, goes to my old school section, pretty much rapes it, and the very next day plays the records that he purchased at my store, and shouted us out. It's like every song that I play here, I
Yeah.
purchased at this record store called Benton Records in Town and Country. So it's those
Mm.
moments that boomerang. There's another DJ Sandman, who everybody in this city respects and loves, and on a chat board, on a message board, he co-signed it for us one time. That was another moment where you know but I think when I really sit there and think about like what the highlights were, besides when the celebrities would come, I used to do something called the producers listening party.
Mm.
Basically, you're a producer, you would bring your burnt CD. We would print your burnt CD in our sound system, which was a crappy shelf system. It wasn't no state of the art, nothing.
Yeah.
Everybody would bring their own bottles, and we'd listen to beats. It was hip hop at its purest form.
Mm.
It was hot and sweaty because there was too many people in there, but I loved it.
That
I
sound
loved it.
that sounds like, how in the beginnings of hip hop was pure, sweaty, right? No
Yeah,
AC, people being huddled in a room together, listening to music and just enjoying and having a great time. The community, right? It's the
yes,
community that was
that's
that
what
was.
it.
Hmm.
That's what it was. We built a community, and that community to this day is with us. One time, KRS-One came through the store, and him and his DJ, they were doing a show, and we sponsored the show, sorta, and in exchange, he came to the store to do like a meet and greet. And the
Hmm.
minute he walked in, he just looked around. He said, "Wow, this feels like home." and he was just, there was a few people there, not a whole lot of people, maybe a dozen people. I don't think there was 20 people. He's, signed stuff for them, took pictures for them, and I had a turntable set up, right? Because that was the other thing. We had turntables, so DJs at any given moment would just start rocking,
Mm.
and we would have like you'd have like the best DJs in town just come cipher for no reason, just hang out and do their thing because it was fun.
It was fun.
And KRS-One looks at me, he goes, "Are those turntables hooked up?" I said, "Yeah, man." He's like, "You got a mic?" I said, "Yeah, man."
Here
He's
we
like,
go.
"Can I rock?" It's like, "Of course." And went and gave us a 20-30 minute show that was phenomenal. It was hip hop at its purest,
Mm.
and it was fun, so those type of moments, and we could probably run 2 or 3 shows with me reminiscing of those types of moments, but every single one included moments that just happened.
Mm-hmm.
The
Yeah.
thing about moments is that you don't realize you're in them while you're living them in that at that time. It's not
Right.
till later that you realize, oh man, that was a moment.
That was a moment. And moments build up, right? And moments build up, and it makes, for an exciting journey, because all those journeys are made up of those. But we were talking about this on the podcast that, there are minutes in these moments that are made up of a person's journey. And so
Mhm.
sometimes we take a look back and go, wow, this happened and this happened and this happened and this happened. And all of a sudden we've lived a very fulfilled music journey, over the years. So that's amazing. I'm sure there are more stories and more moments in history when it comes to Benton Records. Uh, but something happened. I mean, we all started getting hit with the whole digital music, right? And I mean, now we can go on our iPhones and download a whole
Mhm.
log of music. Yeah. So, kind of how did that and so we can kind of talk about it from both perspectives. How did that impact Benton Records? And then how does that impact Benton Entertainment? And so we'll start there, and then we'll talk about how Benton Entertainment came into fruition. So but yeah, talk about that. How did the digital age kind of impact that?
So I was at a DMC competition. DMC was a DJ competition. For those who might not know, it was a battle, right? It
Mm,
was a DJ battle, and they had a well-known DJ there showcasing this new thing called Serato. And basically, what he was showing us is that the music was on his computer, and he was controlling it with these specially time coded records. And he was doing a routine. There was, without switching records, he didn't have to change records. All the songs were on his laptop, and he was controlling that with the records as these special coded records. And it scared me.
mm,
And I was like, whoa. And the crowd, a bunch of hip hop purists, started chanting, "Real records, real records, real records." And I'm like, oh, I'm cool,
I'm
right?
sure.
I'm cool. I'm not worried about it. They want real records. They don't want this stuff. And over the next year, it was like somebody turned the faucet off. I
Mm,
had more DJs coming to sell their records than buying records. And at one point, it was done. And the record store did not survive. The, you know, I like to think I'm smart, right? But that's just the ego talking.
right.
Because I wanted a record store, but I knew that I couldn't compete with Sam Goody or Walmart or
Mm,
any of those places, right? So I focused on selling music to the people who used it most. DJs went record shopping every week or every other week, or at least every month,
mm,
because they need to stay on top of it because they need these. This is their tools.
they got to have this in order to do their job.
Right.
Yeah.
So that was my plan. That's why I focused on the DJs. Everything else just happened I didn't plan on all the other stuff. I didn't plan on building a community. I didn't plan on artists coming and record labels and famous people. None of that was part of the plan. I just wanted to sell records to DJs. And when the DJs no longer wanted those records, it was a wrap. It was done.
Wow.
And I closed the record store. I took the remainder inventory home, and now I have a living room and a dining room and a bedroom full of records. And I'm trying to sell them, and I'm trying to sell them online. And a few DJs are still coming to my house to take through my inventory. And the last 13 crates of records I gave away to a up and coming producer. Just told them, just take them.
Mm.
And that was the end of that era. And I was angry, and I was mad, and I didn't know where I fit in anymore. Um, Shortly after that, I was invited to a luncheon with with a a well known artist, and I couldn't understand why would they invite me. Like, what am I doing there? Like, what's my purpose? I don't have a record store anymore, right? Like, the record store had me at real industry parties, like my wife and I sat on the couch one time and watched R. Kelly and um, Missy and LL. Like, we were like, oh my God, why are we here? It was
Mm.
all as a result of this record store, right? This little tiny record store in Tampa, Florida. So when that's gone, I felt like my identity was gone.
Mm.
Like, I don't know, and this is what I've done for so many years.
Thanks.
Um, I was mad at the DJs for selling out. Many years later, when everybody's a DJ, I rubbed it in their face and said, "See, you took out the barriers of entry, and now
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
have all the competition in the world." Um, so I stopped doing the Tampa Music Conference too, because I just wanted nothing to do with music. About 2 years later, maybe not even, maybe less than that, maybe about a year later, one of my previous clients, uh, who I consider a friend, asked me to meet him at a coffee shop and pitched me an idea of selling MP3s online. Like, what the hell? What the hell, man? For 99 cents, we're going to sell MP3s for 99 cents. I didn't see the vision, and I turned it
Mm.
down. And today, that's one of the biggest distributors in the country.
Wow.
But it is thanks to that friend and that distributor that I ended up back in the music industry, and Benton Entertainment came to be.
Man, that is a I can understand everything in there that you've conveyed as far as the journey, the emotions, and what happened in that time. Uh, it's like what happened to music production, right? The barrier to entry to music production kind of was the same, um, same type of process. They ended up inventing, of course, computers, and then digital audio workstations and all these other things. And now the barrier to entry into music, anybody can be a music producer. Anybody
Mhm.
can be a DJ. All you got to have is Serato and just, a computer, and then you're good to go. But when you think about the skill that it took to really hone your, the time, the energy to hone your craft as a DJ, as a producer back then, you put in tons of man hours, right? I mean, you put in tons of man hours just to be competent at doing that skill, that job. And you're right. Once that happened, it, I was talking to a friend today about the how innovation is a disruptor in the music industry, and in almost any industry. If you do it right and you innovate right, uh, what you innovate could be a complete disruptor, and that's what happened to the
Mhm.
DJ. Started making Serato, and then you could just do everything right.
But but we're you know 15 years later, 18 years later. How many years has it been since I closed the record store, right? And today, the things that DJs do with the tools that they have is amazing.
Amazing. Yeah.
So the ones that are still trying to be creative, not because the word DJ is used the same way the word producers use, right?
Mm.
It's, it's just thrown out there. But there are some DJs doing some very amazing things thanks to those tools that they have today. I mean, they're able to split. They're able to get stems off of any song right now,
Oh yeah.
and
Oh,
and just generate brand new. Those are things that you know when we used to DJ, the guys who had a third turntable, they were innovators. Like,
mhm.
whoa. And I would listen to the mix shows for hours on end trying to duplicate what they were doing, not understanding as a teenager, not understanding that our mix took them 5 hours to do. They would cut and edit, literally cut the tape with a razor blade and tape it with clear tape. I didn't know that at the time. It would frustrate me when I would try to duplicate those mixes. Like, how on earth are they doing that?
Mm-hmm.
And these guys with the software and the tools that they have today, very seamlessly do some very awesome things, and I'm here for it. Like, at the end of the day, it ended up being a good thing, because what could be wrong with more people playing music?
Well, I mean, I guess that's the question, right? Is does it now become an oversaturation of an oversaturation of people performing that performing in that role? Are there too many DJs? Like I tell people, there's probably too many producers, probably too many artists, probably too many. You know, this is the only field that I know that I can go into a city, especially in a music city, and everybody does something related to music. And it's like, oh, I thought you would just say Uber. No, I'm an Uber and a producer, or I work at this restaurant and I'm a singer, or I work, at this company and I do this. It's I believe it has opened up the barriers so wide that now anybody can get into it. Things are so easy now with technology. I mean, you can go to YouTube University and learn how to use any tool, any software, any digital audio workstation, any DJ software, and then you can slap that label on yourself and start doing things. Technology has allowed us to do so much. We can jump on TikTok and Instagram, and now we are a producer or DJ or whatever the case. But it's I'm here for it still, right? Regardless, I still love to see the innovation and the ideas and the creativity that people use and come up with in regards to those different areas
I can tell you that there's definitely oversaturation, right? There's over 10,000 songs being uploaded to Spotify every day.
every day. It's
So yeah, so oversaturation doesn't even begin to cover it. It's not the same industry. It is not the same industry, and unfortunately for artists, music is just if they want to make a career out of it, music is only one piece of the puzzle. Music becomes the
mm,
vehicle for the something else. For something else. Music alone is not gonna cut it, and it's a
mm,
shame. And there is movement in the industry to try to curve that a little bit. Spotify did take some steps to try to reduce the amount of fraud, the amount of noise. It's the word that they use. People upload. There's a band who uploaded a silent album. No, there's nothing. Yeah. So obviously it's not music. So
what do you
Spotify, right? They could claim creative, whatever, but Spotify took it down, and Spotify's taking stuff down, and so are the other digital service providers. There's been talks about changing the method that artists get paid, to where instead of it being user centric, it's artist centric, meaning that if I only listen to J. Cole, then my whole $10 goes to J. Cole.
I'm glad you said J. Cole. It's still is my favorite artist. I'm,
Yeah.
I'm glad you said that.
So you know what I mean. So basically, my $10 gets divided between the people that I listen to. That's a more fair way
Mm,
of dividing the money. But that's again, that's a whole nother conversation. So the barriers of entry have been removed. The power, for the most part, has been taken away from the powerful, and I like that. I'm okay with that. We have to take the good with the bad. We can't be like, okay, we want people to be able to make music freely, but only certain people,
exactly.
right? Like I always, the way that I picture it is a room full of kids and a room full of instruments, and those kids are gonna go pick up those instruments and they're gonna play, and it's gonna be horrible, but those kids are having fun.
Right.
Let those kids have fun. I don't want to listen to it. I'm not the target market anymore, but let those kids have
Let
fun.
let them enjoy it. You know, we were having on one of our podcast episodes, we were talking about one of the guests on the episodes, uh, Kelby Canick was talking about music should be free, right? And so he was talking about music should be free. like, like what? He was talking about music should be free in the sense that nobody has the ownership of the music, right? Like he was talking about, you know, when you go into a restaurant, you hear music, and that music in that restaurant has to be counted and sent over to, you know, or live or in a bar or in a hotel or something like that. Uh, as DJs, you got to you do your spins and you got to record that and send it up, and so that the amount of monies can be paid in the publishing and all that stuff. And it's like, like who made that? Who made all that up? Publishing. Who determines who gets publishing? Who determines who gets mechanical royalties and performance royalties and all of those? And we've had this large, this
I was
long.
gonna say that's a whole nother episode. I could answer the question, but that I will we will
Yeah, we were about music being
no.
now not free in the sense. And I had to come back on it. I was like, okay, you're not saying free in the sense that somebody shouldn't be paid for their creative work. What you're saying is that shouldn't be a controlling entity over it that determines who's getting. You should still get paid. He was like, you should still get paid for the shows you do. He said, when you think about back in the day when Mozart and Beethoven, when they went out to perform, they performed and they got paid for, you know, their perform. We'll say they got paid for their performance, but there
I,
wasn't like.
no, I can't. I'm sorry. I'm trying. Back in the days when Mozart wrote a symphony, he'd go in and perform it and get paid for that performance,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Let's open our imagination up and let's say that Mozart took that sheet of music and gave it to his publisher, who then put it in a book of songs and sold that book of songs throughout the land.
Well, yeah, that's what happened.
Most, Mozart gets a percentage of every book sold.
True.
That's publishing.
That's right.
And without that publisher printing and selling that book, Mozart's income would have been limited only to his performance. But now he's making money when other people are performing his
Mm-hmm.
songs. That's where it comes from,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where we have publishing today. It got weird when we started recording music. The
Mm-hmm.
recording, the sound recording, muddled things a little bit. But but I am one who thinks that those restaurants and those bars should continue to pay their licenses. And I do think your BMI, ASCAP, and CSACs should continue to collect on those licenses. The distribution at that point, that formula, that's up for discussion, right? They use it based on I don't know, the more famous. There's ways of tracking who like there's ways of tracking.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm an artist, I go into the local bar and I play my set. I tell my publisher, administrator, or whatever, these are the songs that I did. And then I get paid from the venue for my performance. But then as a songwriter, I get paid because my songs were performed in public,
That's
even though it was me doing it. So
right.
yeah, man, that oof, man.
Woo! I know. I
We can
was
move
like,
on because
eh, so my cousin, also an artist who lives here in Atlanta, as soon as he said that, he was like, "What? Like free? And like there shouldn't be a controlling entity over it telling you this is what you should get paid." He's like, "Music should be free." And I was
but,
like, "Wow,
but that's a problem. People think music is free.
yeah, that's the."
There is no value to music anymore. Music has been
Mm,
devalued. Okay, so you have children. I don't know if you have grandchildren. I have grandchildren. My
I still,
grandchildren, my grandchildren will never understand owning a song. They will never understand buying a song. That concept is will be foreign to them,
hmm
and their children even less. So music has been devalued to the point where people think it's free,
you have no,
and that's the problem.
there's no ownership of personal ownership of music, right? And for me, I'll take that as that. There's like I can look over at I started collecting vinyls not too long ago. Um,
Nice.
my, my wife purchased me a Wu Tang first Wu Tang album, and so that started the whole thing. But I only buy records that actually mean something to me. So like I have Michael Jackson's Off the Wall album sitting over here. I own that. It's sitting right there, right? I own the album. I can put it on my record player and play it anytime I want to. If Apple Music decides to shut down today, which of course they're probably not, you own none of that. If they decide
Right.
to change their subscription model and service and start charging you more for your subscription to Apple Music, what are you gonna do? You don't have those songs anymore.
Yep.
So the ownership, the personal ownership of that goes away. Where with CDs and tapes, because you used to have a lot of lots of tapes, CDs and tapes and vinyls. I mean, we have those. Those. I mean, they take up physical space, right? But we still have access to those. So if I still wanted to play my Michael Jackson Off the Wall album, I can do that. I don't have to go to a streaming service to be able to listen to that song or to that album. So
Hmm.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Music.
let's
Music has lost its value.
yeah, yeah. And I would say in a sense from that perspective, it has lost its value. So let's go back. Let's talk about Benton Entertainment and your vision for your organization, what it stands for, its purpose, and what your overall mission is that you're looking to accomplish as Benton Entertainment.
So when I was done being angry at the world, and my friend reaches out to me and says, "Hey, you should bring the Tampa Music Conference back." I'm like, "No, I'm not doing that." I almost cursed. I'm not doing that. And he's like, "Come on, man, we'll help you." Like, I'm not doing that. Come on, we'll help you. I'm like, all right, I guess we'll do that. He was not the only one who was in my ear about bringing
Mm,
the Tampa Music Conference back. He just happened to be the one that broke the camel's back. And then he said, "You should start a record label." I'm definitely not doing that. I'm definitely, come on, we'll help you. We'll distribute you for free, and
oh,
we'll help you. And I was like, oh, okay. So Benton Records as a company had been dissolved, so I needed to start a new company, and I named this one Benton Entertainment. And Benton Entertainment started to bring back the Tampa Music Conference and to have a record label, which cleverly I named Benton Records. Um, and the record label was a way to help, ended up being a way to help my friends distribute their music, you
mm,
know, because because digital distribution was still kind of new, right? DistroKid really wasn't a thing.
right.
They might have been in their infancy, but artists, independent artists, knew that you could do that, but there was some cost involved in distributing your music, and the legalities of it was still scary. Like, are they gonna take my
It's
my,
gonna own
my
it,
money?
right?
Yeah, my ownership. Are they gonna
Yep.
take ownership of my music? There was a lot of unknowns. And I called a friend, my friend Sirene, and I told her, "Hey, I'm gonna start a record label." And she got so excited for me, and I told her, I want you to record an album. I want to distribute it. And we started using the record label as a vehicle for distribution, right? So we weren't developing artists per se. We were just making it easier for artists who didn't know how to get their music out there to get their music out there. So they would give me a final product. I would go onto the distributor and um, and distribute it, right? And it was a hobby. It was kind of like,
Mm.
more word of mouth started to do its thing. You know, Benton Records is back. That kind of got a little bit of excitement. Um, People started reaching out, and we learned that X amount of years later, the need for education still existed. Like there was still a lot of unanswered questions. Or I just want to sing. I don't want to deal with that. Was a common answer.
Mm.
And I'd be like, "Mom, you gotta know this, man. Can't you just handle that?" So we started publishing administration in an effort to help the songwriters collect their royalties because they weren't registering their songs. They just weren't.
Wow.
You got producers out here giving people beats for a couple $100s and not worrying about the back end.
Right.
And you have, rappers putting their songs out there and thinking that's it. They don't realize that they're songwriters and that there's a whole nother stream of royalty that goes with being a songwriter. So we set that up and we helped them, get set up with either BMI or ASCAP, and we go through that whole process. We start registering their songs for them. If they perform, we get their set list and send it to BMI Live or ASCAP on stage or whatever the case might be. And there came a point where we're like, wow, we have, I need to update my bio, but we have 400 songs, 300 songs. We got hundreds of songs. We're not like this tiny little thing. And then I thought about my clients. Every single one of them is someone who I knew personally,
Mm.
and they trust me with this. They give me their baby and say, "Here, Angel, take care of this for me." And I got all these babies that I'm like, you know, juggling around. And I realized that they didn't have the best situation for them. I tried to tell them, "You could do this yourself. Nah, just you just handle it." But there was some conflict in there, right? Because out of every dollar, 30 cents went to the distributor. We kept 20 cents. The artist is only getting the remainder 40 cents, 50 cents. Like,
Right.
what? They're not getting enough. And the distributor, the DSPs are already paying 0.0003 cents per stream. So when I sold, I was doing payroll, not payroll, but payouts every month, and I was seeing what they were getting. There was a little bit of, I don't want to say guilt, but it just didn't feel right.
Mm.
So the universe, I spoke. The universe said, "Yeah, what's up?" And I said, "Man, I really want to be able to figure out how to distribute." And I was able to. We found a company in Europe that develops the platform. They did a horrible job, lost that money. I didn't like it. It was slow. It looked ugly. It just.
Mm.
But then I found another one. So this one's nice, and they help get the contract. They help with the contracts with the DSPs. Uh, they let me use some of theirs. I started to try to get some of my own, and lo and behold, Benton Entertainment has a record label, a publishing company, and now a distribution company. So we have our own distribution platform, and you know, it kind of hurt stepping away from my friend because I don't want to feel this. I don't want to feel. I don't like feeling disloyal.
Mm-hmm.
But at that time, I felt like it was the best thing for my clients
Mm-hmm.
because now, out of the dollar, I'm able to keep 15 cents and let them keep 85. It's a huge difference,
Huge difference.
right? Huge difference. And I'm saying percentages. So Even though I'm saying 15 cents, it was actually a bigger percentage for me. So it was win-win. Um, so now we have a distribution company and and a record label. The record label really kind of stopped functioning now because now we have now we have our platform, so we don't need to use a record label to distribute. Now we just distribute, and it started doing well. It wasn't completely busy. Like it was something we enjoyed doing, right? But I didn't put 100% of that effort in there. Eventually, I stopped doing the Tampa Music Conference because I came I came to a path in the road where I had to I Benton Entertainment wasn't growing because half of the year I spent on the Tampa Music Conference because
Mm-hmm.
I always gave it, January came, it's time to go, and I worked through it till June. And I really worked on it. Like it
Mm-hmm.
took a lot of my time and effort and resources. So I stopped the Tampa Music Conference and I focused on Benton and growing Benton. And we're doing okay. We're going on, our we have over 100 clients now, 120, a couple of thousand songs in the catalog. And I'm like, okay, this is cool. This is what we're going to do, right? And then August last year, July last year, this beautiful space became available.
Mm.
And we've always wanted a recording studio. And I talked to the universe, and the universe said, "What?"
Yeah,
And I
like me.
said, "Yeah, like you again." And I was like,
Right.
"Can you help me out with this?" And somehow, some way, it happened. And we opened the Benton Media Lounge, and it's a place where people come create music. We make it very comfortable. We feed them. They record. It's a recording studio, but it's also we have one room specifically for the producers. We call it the kitchen. They go up there and cook up and do what they think. We
Right.
have the wood room. We have a podcast studio. We have a photography studio. And I spend my days and nights here, and I'm happy just sitting here listening to music and watching the whole process. That's where
Mhm.
we are today.
I love that. I love that. Hey universe. I got some ideas and some dreams. We need to make this happen.
you
That
know, you, you know what the key is this. If you're gonna ask, you have to listen.
mm-hmm.
Sometimes we ask, but we don't shut up and listen to what they're telling us to do. If you listen, the answer will come
Mm-hmm. I love that.
every single time. Every single time. You gotta ask, but then you also gotta listen.
Mm-hmm. So so a big part of what your organization does is also in sync licensing. So how did that avenue and approach open itself to being a part of what you do at Benton Entertainment? Because sync licensing is
So
huge.
yeah, well, seg licensing is, we did say that music has lost its value. Not entirely. You're right. Music has lost its value from its retail side, but from a licensing side, it's still alive and well. Again, barriers of entry have been removed, so there's more competition. But so it's. I think it happened with like everything else. You learn about what sync is. You're like, oh, okay, and it pays, and this is the process. We fell into sync licensing by accident, um, through the publishing company when we did, we get a report, and now there's some money from a TV show on Entertainment or something. We're like, well, that's kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
How did that happen? And um and and we kind of started following the thread and linking up with trying to link up with supervisors, trying to link up with uh, sync agents, and just kind of when I allowed myself to dream, that's one of the things that I'm doing. Just sync. I would love to not have to do all this other stuff and just focus on sync. I think there's a world of opportunity there. We have a songwriting team that comes through on Sundays. Sometimes they come on other days. Sometimes they don't come on Sundays at all. Summer kind of dragged us a little bit. Everybody had summer plans, but
Mm-hmm.
we're getting back to it, and that's what they do. They come here, they write, uh, focused on sync opportunities.
Yeah, that's awesome. I see. That's you know, that's that's awesome because that's one of the things that I want to put together is a team of people who focuses on creating and making music just for sync and
Yeah.
and being in that space and being in that world because it can be a very lucrative world to be in. Because I know tons of people who do music day in and day out and really aren't making anything from the this side of it. Trying to not to throw shade at any artists and things like that, but or putting music out, but that really is where a lot of issues take place or non-money generating opportunities happen on that side. But sync is alive and well, and
I think with sync, anyone who wants to get into sync should try to focus on a niche. Uh, we are trying to focus heavily on covers for sync and karaoke for sync.
oh, okay,
Because whenever you watch a TV show or whatever, and they're at the bar singing karaoke, they're not using the instrumental version of the original song. That's a track made specifically for karaoke scenes in
oh,
film and TV.
see this, oh,
So you focus on a niche. You link up with either like a good sync agent if you have the good fortune of networking with a couple of music supervisors. You you give them what they need, make it easy, make sure all your paperwork is clean, make sure your producer is not using any samples, stay away from splice. That's a whole nother talk, man.
right,
um they on the distributor side, we're starting to get copyright hits because some of the splice samples are being used so much that the
oh
software
my,
thinks
I don't even,
that somebody. Yeah, it's it's
yeah, I
it's
don't,
it's a mess.
yeah, I'm like, oh no, and it's not even just splice, it's, oh gosh, you know they're starting to detect so many different things from, and I always tell people, even using things out of your VSTs, depending
Yep.
on what it is in that VST. It could be a particular sound, or it could be maybe like an ARP that you use out of the VST or out of Logic or one of your DAWs. Like it can, if somebody else has used it or multiple people have used that, it's probably going to
Yep.
pick it up. It's like, oh
Yeah,
damn,
the YouTube Content ID software is so sophisticated
oh
that
goodness.
it can capture stuff at fractions of a second now,
Hmm.
and everyone's using the same sounds. So and a lot of people aren't even like flipping it. They're not rubbing it. They're not. They're just here it comes, just the same way it comes in, it goes out.
Right.
And because it's 10,000 songs a day being uploaded to Spotify, you can't have human beings filter through that. So we use machines to do that, and the machine doesn't know any better. The machine doesn't know that that's a legal uh, soundbite, that you have a license for it. They don't know that. It gets kicked out. And the same thing happens with sync, right? So to bring it back to sync license, um, you don't. The last thing they want is to be, hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars, or even if it's a small production, they don't want to be hundreds of dollars into some production, and then right before it comes out, they find out that the song that they're using in their main title track has a sample that's not cleared, and now you have to go either find a new song or go pay that other sync fee to the original copyright owner. So you got to make sure your sound is clean. You got to make sure your paperwork is good. You know, try to collaborate with people that have no issues with doing a split sheet with you.
Yeah, that was one of the barriers to entry, right? Is if you got into sync licensing before Splice, before all of that, people people actually made the music. Keyboardists and drummers and instrumentalists made music. Now we got splice, and now I can take this loop and this loop and this loop and put it together, reverse this, and boom, we got a song, and I can submit that. And so the barrier to entry into that has opened up its doors wide, because back then everybody had to play. Every sync person that I know that does sync today, and I just did a whole segment on called Sync Masters, where I featured a bunch of different people who make music for sync, and they talk about their process. They are literally creating everything that they make.
Yeah.
Now, not necessarily the drum hit or the snare or the clap and things like that, the percussion pieces, but oh yeah, the melody,
Hmm.
they create that melody on their own. They like, because I know it's going to be cleared, and we're not
Yep.
going to have any issues. It's clean. Oh yeah,
If there's a good way to end your career in sync is by wasting somebody's time.
yeah. And they're not going to come back to you.
They
They're
will
not,
not come back.
and not coming back into you. And
I,
you may be
the
surprised. They may go, "Hey, that person over there, yeah, we don't do business with with that
Yeah.
person." It's a
the
small world.
the team that we're working with, they're a relatively new team, and sometimes they might get a little impatient. Like, Angel, when are we? And I'm like,
Mm,
listen, man, we have to have our catalog tight. The last thing we're gonna do is waste somebody's time because we
mm,
will not get that opportunity back. We
mhm,
will not get that opportunity back. So yeah, make sure your music is clean. Make sure your paperwork is right. Have a have a split sheet if you can. Have a I
Which I
forget what
see
it's called.
that there's a thing they can do. Is that a feature on the site, on your site? Is it like a digital split sheet?
The
Is that
digital split sheet.
I can do that?
Once upon a time, in our efforts to educate the masses, my wife and I went and printed, I don't know how many, hundreds, thousands of split sheets on paper. We went to like Kinko's and just, walked the one out with, and we went to all the studios in the area and gave them a pile. That's it. And explained to them what a split sheet was and told them, this will protect you. We were like Johnny Appleseed with the split sheets for no reason. Like we weren't even, I don't even know why we did that. So it's always been like, I don't even, there must have been an end to it. Like I can't imagine me. I know. Anyways, we did that, right? And I've always been an advocate for having your paperwork right. And
Hmm.
a split sheet is the easiest way to protect yourself. And if you are talking with a professional, they're gonna know that you're a professional too, because that's what you do,
That's right.
right?
Exactly.
That's what you do. You
That's
have a
right.
split sheet, right? So I have for years tried to get someone to create an app for a split sheet, and I got tired of not
Mm,
finding the right person, or So again, and he was like, "What's up?" And I found an app that helps you make apps. So what it does is it'll take your website and make it into an app. And I could build a website. I'm
mm,
okay with that. Like I could do WordPress. So I made a split sheet on a WordPress, and really all it is a form,
mhm,
asking questions, and made that into an app, offer it for free. And whenever someone goes in and fills out the split sheet, within 1 or 2 days, they get an email. Everyone who's on the split gets an email. It's a PDF, so nobody can mess with it, and they get their split sheet, and that's it. Now I throw a little bit of advertising for the stuff that we do on the email, but that's it. We don't save anybody's information. We just, you fill it out, and in a day or two, you get your email with your split sheet, and that's that. And that's just, another way of try to not just educate but encourage people to do things right. Just protect themselves, right? Because we've heard so many stories of people saying, "Yeah, man, I was on that song but never got anything out of it." Or did you have a split sheet? And here's the thing: that was then. Today, with the Music Modernization Act and all the laws that have come into play, it is very easy for someone who has had copyright infringement committed against them to fight it. You don't have to hire a lawyer anymore. You don't have to go to federal court anymore.
mhm.
Like they fixed it, right? They fixed it for us. So why not protect ourselves?
That's right. Why not? So yes, yeah, I did see that because there was a time when I was looking for an app that could do split sheets, and I ended up running across an app called Splits.
Yeah.
That's the name. That was the name of Splits, and I was like, oh, I could do split sheets right here. So when I was working on my album back in 2017, I was like, oh, I can just put it all in here, and they can all get it. It's kind of like they can get like a PDF, and I was like, oh, I'll just go do that. And they all got, but I did a whole review of this thing and everything uh, on the channel and all that stuff. Because I was like, this is where it should be. Like, we don't need papers. We can do it right in the app, and it goes sends everybody a PDF, and you put your IPI in there, and you can put all the information, your address, and all that stuff. Who gets what, and it was like, there you go.
I'm, I'm in the process of taking it to the next level and adding a one stop addendum to it,
Mm.
so that if you make a song with someone else, either one of you can pitch it to sync without the other person's permission.
Oh,
Obviously, everybody gets paid, right?
right.
Then that way you don't slow the process down because those,
That's
you
what's
got
up.
to turn it in a day or two. So you're making a song with your buddy, and you're both cool with it, and he's like, you have the paperwork. So when you go submit, they're like, oh no, it's a one stop.
So one stop.
So you could, it's a one stop. So you have a one stop. So I want to put that onto the split sheet app. Eventually, I'll get to it.
Mm.
But that's the next step for that, is to help with that process. But the split sheet app was just that, and I love when I don't get to go in there as much myself anymore. Someone else does that. But every once in a while, I go in there and I peek and I see, and I love the fact that people use it. And I've never paid for advertisement for it. I just kind of put it out there and told people, like, put it on Facebook and
Hmm.
whatnot, and somehow people find it.
They
People
find it.
find it and they use it. And there's been like real deal major label artists that have, or composers I should say, that have used it, and that's very
Mm-hmm.
fulfilling for me.
Mm-hmm. So what's next for you and for Benton Entertainment in the coming years? What do you see yourself delving into in the years to come?
So the next year or so will have me building the Benton Media Lounge to a place where it's running itself, and I don't have to be here as much. I like being here. I love being here, but I don't want to have to be here, right? So it'll get to a place where it's self managing. It'll get there, I'm sure, within the next year or so. And again, when I allow myself to dream, I see myself traveling, taking pictures. I love taking pictures and
Mm-hmm.
finding new musicians in other lands, right?
Right.
Like, can you imagine being in like Latin America somewhere and you're sitting at a bar and there's a person there who just sings phenomenally, just blows your mind, and you have the capabilities of taking that person to the studio the next day or the next couple of days, recording however many songs you want, and then distributing it for them, and like that's like the kind of dreams that I have, right? Like, imagine just finding people and being able to
The
fulfill those dreams for them, because most people can't, especially in those countries. They don't know. They don't have the way, or they might know, but money is a factor, right? It's expensive to record and whatnot. But when you do the conversion from the dollar to the local currency, now we're rich and we could do it.
mm-hmm.
So, and following my passion for travel, I am I am working, and my wife always tells me to be careful with telling everybody everything, but I don't care. Um,
At the same
we are
time.
working, yeah, like, I don't, you know what I mean? If there's enough for everybody, right? Like, who cares? So I'm working on a project where I am going to offer musicians, artists. I'm calling it tourism for artists,
Mm.
right? Tourism for artists. And the package, the sales pitch is that you can go right now. It'll most likely be either Colombia, or like, you get to pick Colombia, Argentina, Mexico, or the Dominican. Only because that's where I know people. Like, that's, I have people there and I'm comfortable, right?
Mm.
Definitely starting with Colombia, and then Argentina and Buenos Aires, and then Mexico, and then the Dominican. That's the order that I have it in my mind. But you and two or three people they don't all have to be artists, but you're an artist, you sing, and you go to Bogota, you go to Medellin, you stay there for 4 to 5 days. Let's say 5 days. You record, so you go to a studio, you record there, you record, you network with local artists there, so you get to record however many songs you need, or 2 or 3 songs, whatever. You get a photo shoot, you get a video shoot, you get a performance, and then you also get to see some of the local stuff, right? Do some tourism while you're there.
Wow.
That's the sale.
Yeah,
It's not
that's
gonna make you famous. You're not blowing up over there. You're gonna go have fun doing what you love
what you
in a
do.
new place.
Well, if you think if you think back to what artists would use, prime example of what you just said reminds me of is when um, Raekwon the chef
Oh
from
yeah,
the Wu-Tang Clan,
yeah,
they actually went to a different country to record their album, like to
yeah.
record his album. It's like those are things that sparks creativity and sparks
Hmm.
imagination, and
Hmm.
there's a sense of fun that comes along with it. I think that sounds great.
Yeah,
I'm
and we could make it very, very affordable for people. Again, the currency exchange is in our favor, so you don't have to hit people over the head so that they can go have an experience. And in a world of content creation, you'll have content for days,
Mhm.
and you have an experience. And I'm a big believer in that cultural exchange only benefits humanity. So the more people get to go experience other cultures, the better human beings they will become.
Mm.
And yeah, that's what's next. I applied for my license with the state of Florida to sell tourism, and once that's done, just got to put the package together and the website, and
Wow.
Benton Travel will be a thing.
Benton travel.
Yeah.
That is a great idea. That is a great idea. I also love the other idea of right because I know you do photography, right? We didn't get into talking about that, but
Yeah.
let's say you as you stated, going to a different country and finding that person that loves to sing. They're dynamic, they're amazing, great voice, and you have like a mobile recording setup and you already have the distribution. I mean, same thing you already talked about. You got the process to be able to do that and to find people like that and I think that right. Oh man, that's
Yeah, that's the dream. That's what I wake up and work towards every single day. Is to be able to have the financial freedom to go spend 2 3 weeks somewhere, and just, and music follows me. Music follows me. I'm just one of those people that when I travel, sure enough, there's going to be some street musician. And I think our senses are different, right? Like our senses are like we're seeing different things, and we're in a different place. So, even if it's a dog walking in the street, we're like, oh, cool, it's a dog, right? Like we take everything different
mm,
because we're in that different place. But I just feel like I just feel like every time I go, sure enough, there's going to be some kind of street musician or somebody playing at some restaurant or something. I'm going to hear live music every single time. It just happens.
wow. Yeah, well, those are great ideas. I look forward to seeing those come to fruition, and what sparks from those. I may have an artist that were like, "Hey, you should go do that." Angel's a
Yeah.
great guy. You go take Benton, tourism and or Benton travel and go over to one of those countries and do have that experience. So I'm interested in seeing where that leads in the future. Um, but man, Angel, it
Hopefully,
has been. No, go ahead. What were you gonna say?
I was going to say hopefully sooner than later.
Hopefully sooner than later. That's right. But it has been a pleasure just hearing about your journey, your story, the initiatives that you are involved in, and just where your journey has taken you and where it continues to take you. So, last thing is, where can people connect with you? How can they find you, follow you, and be a part of your journey with you?
Um, I mean, me personally on Instagram is AS_Benton. And from there, you could go find everything else. But I mean, if people want to connect with me, I'd rather they connect with me personally than through the business. 'Cause that way, we can have conversations. Other than that, the business is Benton. Benton is easy to find. Um, as_Benton on Instagram is the best way to reach me personally.
Perfect. Well, Angel, it has been an honor and a pleasure to have you here on the Indie Unplugged. Appreciate your wisdom and your insight, and just you sharing your journey. I'm always interested in people's journeys and how they began and where they end up. I just think it's very very exciting to hear people's stories and hear people's journeys. So once again, thank you very much for being
Thank
part
you.
of the. I greatly appreciate it. And ladies and gentlemen, once again, thank you very much for tuning in to another episode of the Indie Unplugged. Catch all of our episodes every Tuesday at 7 p.m. on We Create Music TV. You can go right to our website, wecreatemusic.tv, and catch all of our episodes, our podcasts, our master classes, our documentaries, and all of the different things that we offer to the music community. But y'all have a great night. Thanks very much for tuning in. And we'll catch you in another interview, another podcast. Peace.